Hello, hello. You're waiting for me. I'm sorry. Got distracted as I do on the air as well. So hi Kate's Biz and Jeff Barnes. Greetings. I'm watching. Jeff is watching a live sumo tournament stream right now. Pretty intense. The sumo wrestlers. I guess that's what that is. Cool. It's a good contrast. I mean, an interesting contrast to things I talk about, I guess. But I mean, there's the self-discipline and everything, and sport and TNO used the term. What they said is change is the name of the game. That's what they said. So there you go. Got some gaming in there. And actually, they talked about how if we could look at it as a game, that can be very helpful. Because then we're not so attached to it, the outcome. Because we're, I don't know, they didn't explain why. So I shouldn't really add to it. But change is the name of the game. And it's not change for the sake of change. They said that. And so they didn't decide ahead of time, okay, we're going to move here, and then we're going to move here, and then move here. And that goes right along with what Jesus said was that the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. Because he's not ever settled in the human kingdom. Doesn't want to be. Doesn't want to have a one establishment of one location because he represents the whole planet is the location. And then the specific geography, even more so. And that's what my screen there, for anybody that didn't tune into this previous broadcast or that's an eclipse, those two lines coming together, two different eclipses. One is to come, and April 8th, 2024, and the other one is August 21st, 2017. And they were, that was the path they took. They were total solar eclipses. And so I take that as a sign from the sun and the moon and the stars, like Jesus taught was going to be the signs to see, as well as the comet. Comets are the signs to see. The light streaming from east to west. The light strewn is actually, if you go right, you have to go a lot of ways back in the for the meaning of the word lightning in, I think it's Matthew somewhere, talks about upon his return, upon the return of Jesus. Not Jesus, just what he said it was returning was the Son of Man. And then he also said who was returning was the kingdom of God was returning. He didn't say Jesus was returning because he knew that he wasn't going to be returning with that same vehicle. And so he knew that he was going to have a different name. And that's why it says in Revelation 3:12 that he will, in one spot it says that he will give us the white stones. The individuals that are connected to white stones, and that's the apple white, That's the stone. The stone is the rock coming from the human kingdom, the dust of the earth. I never went to that verse before now and saw that clearly. Unless I'm thinking about it in an illusionary way, so maybe I should go there, but I don't need to. I want to cover more territory instead of people can look it up, and I recommend that people do. If I got something wrong, you think means something different, let's join in here, to talk about it, the pros and the cons, so to speak. And but I'm not just for the sake of anybody that's new to this broadcast. I'm not trying to prove anything to anybody. Well, that's not true. I am trying to prove to people that T and O were the ones that were talked about as the Father and the Son returning. That's what I've been talking about. So, but I want it to happen in a way that is pulled from the information from T and O, and that's why it's like. Well, never mind. I'm just getting off the track here, but it's not like I sit around thinking about that. I don't. I'm just doing this because I can, and I had to. I wanted to. All those reasons. It's like T and O taught in the very beginning. It said they would force themselves to go down into the bottomless pit, so to speak, only so to speak. But where the individuals are in the bottomless pit, that would have them deny everything they believed about themselves and about the level above human and about the human kingdom and the earth and life forms on it. So they got a big chunk of information in 1973 in Bourne, Bernie, Texas. I'm saying Bourne, Bernie because it's two different pronunciations, Bourne and Bernie. And they both have value as far as I'm concerned. Because the next level does that. It's not like I'm trying to see you all these things and everything. It's like you can say, well, you're just seeing that in the name Bernie, Texas, or Bourne, Texas. That's got some hidden meanings behind those words. And yet, that's one of the things that T and O taught that the next level crews do to help us. They become clues. And our vehicles need those clues to cooperate with us. It's like giving sugar to the horse. The mind doesn't need those clues so much. Well, maybe I'm wrong about that. I'm wrong about that. I know I'm wrong about that. The mind needs the clues as well. It prepares us for what else there is. See, that wasn't my mind that just came in there and corrected myself. But I could be wrong about that. I don't think I am, though. Because the mind is what decides upon our behaviors, what we're going to do, who we're going to go with, and what we're going to, where we're going to make the, if we know better about something, where we're going to make the compromises. Like in terms of, let's say, addiction. It takes a lot of work to get out of an addiction. That's and that builds the mind. It makes the person actually more powerful in some ways. It doesn't mean that they're all powerful. Well, they are all powerful if they know where to take their power to the next level. That's how they become all powerful. But that's not the objective. of a student of a member of the next level. If that's the objective, then they're going to not. They're going to probably give them power, but then show them how their power is worthless because it doesn't amount to anything. At best, it can amount to their lifetime of their vehicle and whatever else they get off on when people are worshiping them after they die. Their vehicles die. And those vehicles are all used by souls that are the Luciferian space alien fallen angels. Fallen angels in the mythology of it. Mythology at this point I'm calling the Book of Enoch, the Book of Genesis, because it has become a mythology. But that myth doesn't mean, myth I think originates I might be wrong about this, as story. I think it's the same thing, but maybe it has the slant of story that's unbelievable. Well, Tiendo said that this information that they were receiving and gave to us was unbelievably believable. Unbelievably believable. I hope I got that right because I don't feel like I got it wrong, but yeah. Anyway, so let me get back to the chat room. Rent free. Love you too. I love you in a way that's I appreciate. If there's anything that you love about me, then what it is what's been given to me from Tiendo. That's what I love in you. It's the only thing that you can really love about me because I'm an old fart with a wild story. I shouldn't have said fart though because that wasn't the word that they gave us to use, and it was poofoofus. Not that I'm 100% like that. I'm not. I go with the flow on that. So it's whatever the vernacular is insignificant to becoming a disciple of Tiendo is about change of our behaviors and ways and providing service. It's both. And I'm not saying one comes before the other. Like Tiendo used to say in the very beginning, they said that some people would come to them and say that they want to believe. They want to believe. Well, maybe that was the best they could do at that point. And it's always a challenge. No matter where we come from, it's a challenge. Whatever direction we come into the next level information, it's got to be that way because it's got to be hard. It's got to be challenging. It's got to be something that you have to continuously show that you want to be in that vein, in that branch, in that vine, in that thread of next level information that goes to the Chief of Chiefs through the older members. The older members are the ones that have to be here to take us through it. And as far as I'm concerned, they're still here because we know what they look like, what their vehicles look like, and we know that we can still depend on the information that was left behind. The next level made sure that it was going to be remaining on the heavensgate.com website, one way or the other. And my blog has all the documents as well. And I think that would be a service too also to have all those documents spread far and wide, even in hard copy. because if the digital network goes down, then those hard copies will be the best evidence of T&O's physical presence on the planet. The books. I don't think that's a far-flung idea. That's not the first time I thought about that. I haven't done anything about that. I haven't tried to bury a metal box or something. But I might do that. I might do that with everything printed out. Even have a number of copies. Well, the Heaven's Gate book, as well as I'd put my book in there too. Anyway, just thinking out loud for a second there. So let's see. Scott Adcock. Hi, Sawyer, watching from Louisville, Kentucky. Okay, cool. Louisville, Kentucky. That's the first person I've heard from Louisville, but I could not be remembering correctly. But I don't get that many people. I guess you know that already. But Louisville, Kentucky. Let me think a second. The closest we got to Kentucky with the classroom was Biloxi, Mississippi. Now, I don't know if they did a meeting. They might have did a meeting or two even in Louisville. But I wasn't with the group that was doing it. So the Heaven's Gate book actually has a list of all the places during the two public meeting sprees or meeting schedules that were each 9 months long. Well, I can actually look it up. Might be faster than trying to look it up online. I think it is. Louisville, Kentucky. Let's see. We went to. I was with part of this group, but I didn't go to Louisville. Well, if they went to Kentucky, no, the only way anybody went to Kentucky, well, maybe I did go to Kentucky. I think I passed through part of it. Not that what I did was that important. It's not what I did, but because I don't leave much mind behind. I'm not saying that we all don't. We all leave mind behind potentially. I can't say all because I don't know that I do. Okay, maybe my mind's not strong enough, the mind of this vehicle. But maybe it's the soul, and even the soul. I don't know if the mind that's in the soul is strong enough. And I know I'm getting into territory that some people are going to find confusing, and mind and spirit is the same word. It's synonymous and it has to do with information. It has to do with knowledge. It has to do with wisdom. It has to do with experience is a big definition. And that might be the number one. I believe that might be the number one definition that came from Doe. I think in one of the 94 tapes that he did, he said that that's what differentiates the age of members in the next level. Not age and how long they've been in the next level, because what are you going to measure that against anyway, right? That's my little look at that, because they don't have time. They don't have time in the next level, according to T&O. They have events that happen. That's their time. So they go by events. And you can see that then where they made a big teaching out of the cycles of the moon around the Earth and the Earth around the sun, and both of them around the sun. That became the foundational astronomy that has astrological relationships, of course, because there wasn't the first civilization that had that, and it wasn't even the only part of the civilization that had that, because India and China and the American Indians, or all of the natives from all over the world, I guess, actually, all have their own what would be called paganism, because they were appearing to be worshiping many gods, but before you have somebody that's incarnate among you, you don't. If they didn't prepare you for that individual, because you were born at a previous time in the civilization by them, then so first-time seeds are going to need a different kind of nurturing of mind, and it seems like, and this isn't the measurement of anybody, because it's what we do with it, what we got, that counts, because we're comparing ourselves to the next level. We're not comparing ourselves one to another. So there's no competitiveness between students, which I'm a student, and anybody that wants to be a student of Tiendo that's listening to this is joining in with me to talk about this. And with all the questions that are valid, of course, to it all, and I'll do my best to answer those questions. So I know I get off the track, and I go down this road, and then I want to go down a few other roads because of that, and then I forget where I was, and I don't always get back to it, but sometimes I do by going to the chat room again. Louisville, Kentucky, right. Biloxi, Mississippi, I know did meetings there, but I was traveling through, I came through Kentucky at one point. I think I got in Kentucky. I know I was in Tennessee. Anyway, that doesn't matter. It's, I wasted my time on that. Sorry about that. But I like to try to relate the things that are related to Tiendo that happened in those areas. So what I'm going to do then is tell a story about when we went to Mississippi. We were, I think, north of Biloxi, and I'm not sure how far, because at that point I didn't have any knowledge of where we were going when we would take up and leave, because I wasn't one of the ones that was given that information in case we got separated, because sometimes we travel in convoys of up to like 20 cars. Maybe not that many. Oh, no, maybe that many. Anyway, so we traveled over there. We were living outdoors at the time, so we were just living in tents, and that's where we got the lesson plan. I was partnered with Destody for that time period. We were only there for about 2 weeks. And Tiendo were there together, so it was about 1970. Eight, maybe. I would be my best guess on it. So, and so the lesson we had about 2 people to a tent, unless there was an odd number of people. And Tiendo had a tent nearby, but I don't actually remember seeing the trailer in the same camp as I was in. So I think there might have been another camp, and there might have been some students in another camp too. I'm not totally sure about that. But, because that's the way they did things, where they had a different camp from the bigger group. Because they were affected by our presence and our thoughts and our influences, our discarnates that we had all drawn to us as part of being human. We all have discarnates. They're actually time sharing our vehicle. So and so the object of the next level membership is studentship is to kick them out. All the ones that are negative. And negativity, of course, becomes relative to the humanness that would try to keep us to remain human. Not that the humanness is bad, it's just part of the cycle of growth to go through the humanness as the metamorphosis into a caterpillar. The analogy Tiendo used of the biological and mental characteristics of birth into the next level. And there's different degrees of that birth. There might be birth by belief alone. And well, I believe Tiendo did say that but no, it has to have it has to have service associated with it. The belief alone wasn't enough for now, but I don't know if a belief alone was enough for before this. We can't apply it automatically, like during Jesus' time. But I suspect it was. I suspect it was. Because it would have been as hard to believe in Jesus as it is to believe in Tiendo, for sure. Those days, I would imagine. A scientist would probably pick that apart. Human scientists would pick that apart, to all different degrees and stuff, and think they have a right answer when they don't know what they're talking about. The way that people, they age the earth. They say it's approximately 6 billion years, give or take a billion. Who's to say when you're in the fishbowl what's happening outside that fishbowl? That's what we're ascribing to be. That's what we want to be. I want to be a fish in the sea when the next level comes again to capture me, my vehicle, so that they can bring back a soul to take it over and make me into a member of the next level. Because what Tiendo taught is that the spirit of the vehicle, the mind of the vehicle, from the genetic structure and from the environment, from the parenting, from the experiences in life of each of us, is what makes the frequency structure that's associated with all the genes, but is extended outside of all the genes, depending on its power, how much, or density. Maybe it's more density than power. Because when we start talking about power, then it starts to sound spiritual, or philosophical more than related to ego. I don't know, just my little attempt at a qualification of what I was saying there. But because we do get power from the next level, but it's not power so much so that anybody can notice it, or anybody. Some people might be drawn to it very easily, and those would be the people that are probably most associated with that strain of genetic biology. And mentality goes with that biology. And both are passed on to the next generation. Because that's, and so when the vehicle dies, then that still exists. And that's actually, I believe, a fact. And it's just a matter of what we can become aware of. And I believed in that before I came into this vehicle, or before the mind developed in this vehicle. Actually, before this soul actually took over this vehicle, or tried to take over this vehicle, because I don't know where that soul is now. For all I know, that soul left. Tiendo did indicate that they would be more at a distance, but maybe even keeping an eye on the dropouts. So maybe that's, so this might be the mind of the vehicle that took advantage of having next level mind becoming its mind. Because this can get kind of complicated, because see, the soul that took over this vehicle was outside the vehicle when I was at the Walport meeting, but was the soul that was helped by the next level to pick this vehicle, because the next level wanted to give that soul a match, was the word that Tiendo used, in what that vehicle, in what that next level soul needed to experience in order to take its next step in the birth process of 3 trimesters in the human kingdom for the current experiment. So this vehicle was given a soul at the time that it was picked, which Tiendo said was at birth. That was going to help the vehicle come to the place and be in the place and at the time or whatever, so that the returning next level soul that had a previous birth could take it over. Now that soul that was given to this vehicle is a different type of soul than the soul that's given to a first time plant of that soul. And with the soul comes programming, but it's not programming like humans put in code to a computer exactly, but repetition does that. By saying something 7 times to remember it. You know what I mean? Like out loud or whatever. Which was one of the things that was given in the first trimester classroom with Moses and Jehovah. Tiendo were actually Jehovah and Moses, I believe. And I believe the evidence indicates strongly. I don't think it could be any stronger. But of course, it all isn't expected to look that way automatically. It can't. Each person needs to come to it. Not needs to. Nobody needs to do anything. But the individuals that want to make application to the next level membership need to, right off the bat, know that that's the end result, is that they're going to believe in everything that Tiendo said. Even if they're not going to understand what they meant by it. And they're not going to understand what they meant by it. I don't understand what they meant by it. To a degree, we can understand what they meant by it. And like Tiendo said in the Blackhawk tape, if they felt like they only got 50% of the chunk of information that was given to them, and then if we get 50% of that, they hoped that we would get 50% of that. That's the way I understood it. And Doe talked about if we had 51% of next level mind in us, then that would be what would be guiding us for every decision we made. So each of us right now, no matter who, I'm talking about any human on the planet, can grow in the direction of Tiendo, and they don't have to listen to me. Nope. They don't have to. They don't. It doesn't. I'm not saying it doesn't. I would want to do it if I knew somebody was with them. That's just yeah. So why not? Check it out. But because when we're using the 51%, even if we're just striving to do that, we don't necessarily know that we're doing that. Because we don't even know necessarily how much next level mind we actually have. Because we don't know that, because we're also potentially, everybody is potentially a soul that was planted at their birth. Or they wouldn't be even in this chat room. I don't think for very long. They would have been not even interested in this material at all. I don't think. Well, the whole subject matter, the UFOs, aliens, God, Jesus, Krishna, Buddha. Tiendo did say that all the religions came from the next level. Now, you can say, well, what you classify a religion becomes the issue. Everything becomes a sect, right? A tribe, a region, a country. And while I'm at it, the overview that Tiendo gave us was that this was the Luciferians were running this kingdom, the human kingdom. Well, maybe I shouldn't say it that way. They were behind all the people that rose to positions where they had a lot of influence over other people. And so that's what they want. They want to be able to run the show. And that's how they do it. And so they have people brainwashed, and like that they need sexuality to be healthy. Even though sexuality can be healthy to remain human, but to outgrow humanness, it's no longer healthy to have that addiction, because it's an addiction as strong as, if not stronger, than narcotics and alcohol and substances and power and ego and intellect and philosophy, humor, arts, right? Arts isn't down far, and it's not, any different on the list. Fame, fortune, of course, money. possessions and influence over people, self-importance. That's what we live in. We live in a world that sees that as the epitome of, a lot of people see it as the epitome of what they all want. A lot of people also don't go with it. I don't know what the ratio would be, because it's a matter of degrees and how we don't go with it. But I know I came into this world and I didn't care about anything. Except what I wanted. So, so I started out, if I wanted cookies and I didn't have any money, I went into the grocery store and I put them under my jacket, under my shirt. I did a bunch of that. But, at a young age, I outgrew it. And, but I mean, if I was destitute, if I couldn't, if I didn't get food stamps, I'd be trying to work. But what if I'm disabled and I can't work? And I have actually experienced that. So, then is somebody wrong for taking food stamps? It just comes to my mind. I never talked about the food stamps before. But TNDO were for the social programs. They didn't want people to have their last paycheck, that they can't make their rent and pay for their basic, ability to have electricity and heat and gasoline, ability to live and have experiences, because a vehicle in the next isn't good, any good in the kingdom of, if they can't have experiences. Even staying in the same spot one's whole life. Well, it's not that there's anything wrong with that. No, there's nothing wrong with it. There's not, because it can become another. It's another form of sensuality, I believe, to stick with your roots. Because Tiendo did talk about how family was sensuality as well. And, loving somebody, of course, in the family and taking care of somebody that you love. A lot of people stay in one spot or in the vicinity to be close to the ones that they love and they respect. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's just another lesson step in addition to all the others. And all of the experiences in the human kingdom are all opportunities to outgrow them. And we have to outgrow all of them to become a member of the next level. But the next level helps us do it. And they help us do it by having problems and not living forever. Is the most obvious one, right? And the vehicle breaks down, and the mind starts to forget, and you give your heart to somebody, and they break it, or you break someone else's heart, or you don't live up to the standards of somebody you looked up to a lot, or you're put down a lot, all the time as being worthless, or are disabled, and whatever problems we could all have. They're all part of the human kingdom, and they all can be overcome. If not in this life, in a future lifetime. And the next level, even individuals that never heard of Tiendo and are separating from the human kingdom in their own way are going to be saved for a future opportunity. The spirits will be saved, or the souls will be saved, because they may all have souls. I don't know how many that'll be. Because they can be saved in several ways. Because Tiendo said that there are different storage places. They called them buckets one time. And another time they called them, what else? What was the other term they used? Well, they said that the Luciferian space alien fallen angel souls had more ability to navigate what we would think of as the spirit world. Because there's chambers, that's right, different chambers. Is that what they said? Yeah, I think so. Well, it gets the point across. Different partitions. So if a spirit, if a human dies, they'll when they're in the dead world, according to Tiendo, they still continue to want and think the same way as they thought and wanted before, because their mind was trained by their vehicle and their experiences. So if they wanted to take care of their uncle, until he dies, because they were doing that when they were living, then they'll continue to do that. Now, if they have the idea that when they die they're going to go someplace else, if they think they're going to be met by relatives, most likely they're going to be met by the relatives. They are going to be met by all the dead relatives, most of them, because they'll all be there, because they would stay in that strain, pretty much. Not all the time. But one of the ways they go off of that strain is by attaching to a different group. And I don't. Like an example they gave is that in the religion that was called Ekankar, it's a New Age religion, and they have the belief that there's a location that's called Ek, and that if people believe when they die they're going to be met by somebody that's from Ek, then they will, and that person will take them to Ek. So they need a guide to go someplace if you don't know how to get there otherwise. It's like you don't know that you can go through a door, I don't think. But then there's other spirits, and I think Tiendo taught that the Luciferian space aliens, they teach spirits things that they can do to serve them, and so they can motivate people to go and gosh, I can imagine they could who knows how much because if you think of each of the spirits as being like a little dot of light. A little frequency object, that may a complex kind of digital structure is what it is. It's just like the way that we have software that exists as long as it's in the electromagnetic field of the biology that created it. Right, but then it's extending outside of that, and it can travel along the pathways. So the next level has that same kind of computer system, but we just can't see it. But and that's the ethers, but that's not the heaven. So there's the heavens are locations Or those locations that like Doe said, that when individuals die, they are accelerated to their heaven, whatever they believed heaven was going to be, even if it's done in the terms heaven. If they believe that nothing's going to happen, then they find themselves surprised, I think. Or maybe, I don't even know. I mean, I don't even know if they're surprised. I don't know what happens in some cases, but it might be just like an electromagnetic magnet kind of thing, that they're just drawn to be with the people that they were with when they died. Depending on how that strain developed, I guess. But anyway, I'm just thinking out loud there a second. But well, maybe I took that as far as might be helpful to seeing some of the things that T and O were teaching. Now, they didn't teach that to us like all at once. No, we got it. It was a long time before we understood that a soul was a container, a pillowcase, a pocket. I think the first thing Doe called it was a pillowcase, and then he called it a pocket, and then he called it, and then when he became aware of the Bob Lazar materials, the yellow book that supposedly was written by space aliens, if I understand correctly, which is that's not necessarily impossible. Because they have physical crafts, and they have physical bodies, and they use human physical bodies to do their work. So they could have fed somebody, exactly what to say. But in that, they said that the humans were all containers, is what I remember from the Bob Lazar story. I got it through Bob Lazar's testimony that talked about that yellow book that he was shown while he was at the Groom Lake area, or Area 51, or the area that was separate from, well, he didn't even know where he was exactly. He knew a little bit about where he was, in some hangars. So I believe the government does have something to hide there, but they could have tunnels potentially. That stuff could be anywhere, whatever they have left from all that, anywhere. But let's see. I'll go back to the chat room. I have to read this first one I just saw first, in case he leaves here, because I don't want to have any misunderstandings if I can help it. Because I know I say a lot of things that can lead to a lot of misunderstandings about what T and Do are teaching. So. Where was that? I lost track of what I was doing. Why is my screen not working? So Scott Adcock says, how do you know when you are receiving true next level information? The only way we know is by reading and listening to the things that Tiendo said and left behind. That's how we know. That's the only thing. What I'm saying now is a combination of my experiences with them for 19 years and with T for 10 years and for Do for 19, combined with all their materials that they left behind, and some of which I didn't know about while I was with the group. Like the 94 tapes, because even though I was still in the group in 94, I was in a group traveling around doing public meetings. So I didn't have access to some of the meetings that they had for the other groups that were traveling around in different vicinities of, like in California, for instance. Because I didn't do any meetings in my group in California. Anyway, so that's the only way we know that it's true information. So what I'm saying is, some people would call it a watered down version, but I don't think that it's a watered down version, because that's making it sound like it's artificial. No, it's not artificial. It's part of the way things work in the next level is that members of the next level, according to Tiendo, that are doing a task on the planet, which includes all the souls that are returning to do that task, that are grooming vehicles for that purpose, they're all working with one another through the whole strain of the human kingdom. Without knowing it a lot, but that we get from through that genetic strain, thinking that, like, for instance, thinking that somebody, that there's any justification for somebody to turn the other cheek and let somebody hit them again, literally. But it doesn't really mean that you would let them hit you again. You would run away, is what I believe. But the idea that you weren't going to strike back was, I think, what the higher form of lesson was there that came from the next level. So when somebody in life comes into life, just knowing that killing another human is wrong, that's evidence of coming from, that's next level information, because they're the ones that said that in the original instructions that came early on in the civilization through the Moses materials that he wrote, as the records indicate. So let me think where I was there a second, though. In terms of what I'm saying, and where it stands in that chain of mind, I'm like a little, I guess, little offshoot of it, but because it doesn't really matter what we are and what we think of us. No. Well, see, what stimulated this was, how do you know you're receiving next level information? It's like next level okay. Here's the idea from that Transfiguration Diet book. there's three parts to our mind. That there's the genetic structure, and then there's the environmental. So the genetic structure is the heritage. And there's the environmental mind that comes when the baby's born. That's when they're starting with that genetic structure, and then they're moving on from there. And that influenced by society, everything that happens comes. And then the third part of mind, which is the next level mind, is when you make a choice to not just go along with the vehicle, what the vehicle wants. Okay, now, so like what the vehicle wants is food, sex. I'm not saying in that order. Some people it's in a reverse order. Well, not really, but I'm just joking. I'm just joking. I'm not down on anybody like that, by the way, because it's part of the human kingdom, and we all have parts of it. So there's no judgment in that. But but humans, don't need to have corporate jobs to be people that are growing towards next level membership potentially, to know right from wrong and to make choices. But the mind of that comes from the next level that we have in us, that is in the genetic code as well. The next level mind is in the genetic code. In that mind from the genetic code. And so, but it becomes very subtle, and it can be actually all but gone. Maybe it can be completely gone eventually. But that mind is the mind that says let's say you decide that you want to go on a fast, and you want to try to cleanse the body and see if you get a new perspective and see what you learn from it, and get a fresh start on something. And so you go on the transfiguration diet. That would be my recommendation, to try that. And I talked about that a lot before, and you can see it in the. I'd appreciate not talking about it right now, so I can actually make some headway towards this answer to this question, or this statement, or question. And but you can see it in the descriptions and the titles of some recent live streams that I've done where I focused on it. And so let's say in that diet it said that you couldn't eat cookies anymore. Okay? So, but you were still tempted by those cookies. So when you stepped in after you decided to do that and said, no, vehicle, you're not going to have that cookie. I know you want that cookie, but I'm not going to do that right now. I'm not saying that cookie's bad. Okay, but I'm just giving that example. It can be. It can have, cookies can be, hazardous to your health because there's not much value to them nutritionally. It's all dead material, so the sugar is what you get the buzz from, and that just feeds a craving. And not that we don't need some of that, we need some of it for our brain, but we probably don't need the fat in that condition, the residue from that, and all the stuff that's put into them. But our bodies can handle it. They can handle a lot of abuse. But as you get older, and the immune system gets more and more taxed, things break down. Or if you have accidents or surgery and you get antibiotics, and your body's immune system's got to fight against that, even though they're acting that way, but they're doing it to a degree that is diminishing other enzymes and different things. Probiotics, changing the balance of biotics in the intestines. It's supposed to have an alkaline, I guess, pH, but it has an acidic pH or too much of an acidic pH. Anyway, but all that is, so that's what your mind is then when you exercise that. So what Tiendo taught originally was that humans are time-shared computer systems used by the discarnates, and then what we are is the decider of what to think, what to do, and what to think and what not to do, or what to not think and what not to do. The more things we think about that are negatives, the more we build up that characteristic as thinking negatively about things. And so that, when somebody does, there's something wrong with it. And you can complain, people can complain about everything that's not being done the right way. Because they see better. And some things they probably do see better, and other things they probably don't. And, well, not probably. I think that's the way it is for all of us. And, but we get the overview from Tiendo's mind. So that's why I say, if you're wondering about what this is all about, I would recommend the first place you start is with, the Beyond Human tapes. Because that's the first thing that was given, well, that's pretty much the first thing. Well, I'd say actually 88 update. That document would be the first starting document for Introduction to Tiendo, because that was why Do wrote that, to correct a lot of the misinformation that was said about he and T. The 88 update is found in the Heaven's Gate book, which it's posted online. You can copy and paste it, or you can download the whole book there, heavensgate.com. It's not my website, but I know the individuals that are managing it. At least unless they pass it off to somebody else to do, which I got a rumor that was happening. I should actually ask Mark about that. All right, so got me off into I got distracted there, but 88 update, and it's also on my blog. In fact, I can give you a link to it right now. You can copy out of the chat room, right? So since I'm talking about it, let me do that. Because I can't give you a link to, I don't know what the link is to the one on the Heaven's Gate website. And okay. Okay, if you got a chat room, maybe you don't have access to that, but there's a link there to the 88 update document. I guess I should have said what that was. 88 Update the UFO 2 and Their Crew is the name of the booklet, which we mailed to a bunch of people. I'm putting the wrong, I'm trying to be exact here. It's a little bit anal bit, I know, but okay. ETDatabase Update the UFO 2 and Their Crew. The name of the document that was made into a booklet, as in, I just said that already, so I won't go. I'll move on. The other thing, the rest of their information is available. If you send me an email address to email to sawyerhg@yahoo.com. I can send 2 packets of information that are 4 gigabytes in total. So they're 2 gigabytes each, approximately, a little less than that each. And then they're all zipped a bunch of times. So there's a lot of unzipping that needs to be done. Zip folders, that's all what they are. So make sure you have a place, of course, to be able to store that much information to get down to it. And then the audio tapes are in OGG format, OGG. And I got to look into moving them into different formats because some people can't play them on their devices. And I'd like to have people have the ability to, in fact, I got another to-do list here I need to have. All right. So I'm going to go to the top of the chat room. So Ren Free is asking, do you think Epstein was abducted by aliens? Well, it's always possible that he was. You mean at some point in his youth or something? I don't know what the aliens would want to have him do. Once he was in the cell, I don't know why they would want his vehicle. They want human DNA, but I don't know if Epstein's DNA would be great. And Epstein's mind, I don't know if his mind was prepared to operate on a spacecraft with some of those space alien individuals. So I would think not, if I was going to guess, because I think they like the individuals that are more spiritually inclined. Now I don't know, well, I don't know where Epstein was in that, because he could have been if he believed in space aliens, that they were around, if he knew that information, and he was attempting to contact them or work for them, or maybe he thought at times that he was following some kind of ritual and in some kind of order, whether it was Masons or the what would be called the Illuminati, or the families, or the Skull and Bones, like George W. Bush was part of Skull and Bones. Yeah, there's a lot of dark stuff that happens with the people that rise to the, to circulate among the rich and powerful, because they have the most, uh, um, but the Luciferians, they don't like individuals that are not maintaining a certain amount of order. Tiendo taught that. They like order, is what I believe he said in so many words. Not exactly those same words necessarily in that case. I try when I say something that Tiendo said, that's from my memory, okay? And but when I say something that I know they said, but I don't remember the exact words to it, that's I try to qualify that, okay? But anyway, so that's kind of how you should take the things. I mean, not should, but you can think about what I'm saying. I am trying to be careful with my words, and I do hope that feel like I think there's a crew that's assigned to keep track of what I'm saying and correct me if I say anything that's going to really steer people off track in some way. So, but I'm not channeling. Okay, this isn't like what people talk about channelers, where they actually take up another. They have to work for it. That's why I'm like him and Han. I'm going back and forth. I'm saying, no, I shouldn't have said that. I should have said this. Now, that's not a channel. That's the way it works with the next level. I mean, not Tiendo didn't sit around saying I shouldn't have said this and shouldn't have said that. No, no. But T did correct Do a number of times, and Do asked for that correction, and he was attentive to when T said something about that. I mean, it's like he was the epitome of the demonstration of somebody who loved his older member and knew that he was nothing without his older member. He would become nothing. And everything he became was because he continued to look to his older member for help. Now, does that make that person a slave? Does that person make them a robot? Well, the person wants to be a robot, wants to be a slave, but the next level won't let that happen. The older members don't want robots. They can build robots. They want individuals that are going to become part of their family, to continue on helping individuals wake up and move out of the evolutionary kingdom of human. Because the human kingdom wasn't designed to work. It wasn't designed to be a stopping place. It was designed to be a stepping stone, were the words that Tiendo used, a stepping stone. It wasn't designed to work, were their words. But they did talk about how it wasn't meant to be something that was satisfying, except temporarily. It was meant to be something satisfying temporarily because the object from the beginning of the human kingdom was that it was designed to be like high school. Well, not high school, like school in the Western world, where you have elementary school and then you have junior high, then you have high school, and then you potentially have you have elementary school, then you have, I guess, junior high school, and then you have high school. And when you get to the 12th grade, you would be at the place where the vehicles like that were taken over by an older member when he comes to be among those. You could maybe the 124,000, maybe there's 144,000 12th grade potential 12th graders. But that's not, I don't believe that's like a finite kind of thing. It's the number or the determination of who is where. We don't have the ability to judge that. So anybody that tries to say that, it's any one way like that, including myself, is going to be wrong. More likely than not. The more we try to limit the next level in our words and things by saying, oh, this is the way it is here. Now, to say this is the way it is here because Tienda said it was, now speaking, I'm using my older member's mind. And so that becomes my mind, but only to the degree in which I match that with behavioral changes taking over the vehicle. Because otherwise, then there's kind of like a mixture there, of philosophy, so to speak, and or mental, or let's see the word, intuition is another way of identifying next level or higher mind, or and there's individuals in the human kingdom that Tiendo called human equivalents that are souls. They are the Luciferian space alien fallen angel souls, and then any other souls that are of that same approximate age or experience. Let me put it that way, not age, because they don't know how old those souls are and what planets they were from, because they were all drawn here. That's why they're called space aliens. They were drawn here from different places on the planet. That doesn't mean that they only came during this first civilization. No, they were here before this first civilization, because that's what the records indicate. And Tiandu knew there was a previous civilization. They didn't know, they thought it was likely that there were a number of previous civilizations, but they didn't know how many. But that's the way they would say things. So if they didn't know it, they didn't say it. They didn't say, well, we think there's, well, sometimes they did say, we think there's, such and such. But when they say that, sometimes they're not saying that they necessarily know it's 100% accurate. Especially with numbers and time frames and because the next level doesn't operate on our same kind of time frame. Even the incarnate members don't operate with the same kind of time frame because they know there's more. They know they're not limited to our time. And so the next level, the way they think about it, is like a day to 1,000 years. So the next level has a day go by, and it's been 1,000 years on Earth. But they go by, like I said before, they go by events that happen. They don't have time. So they have a comet coming is an event, an example. Maybe a specific comet, not just any comet, but maybe every comet is an event. Because the comets can be meteor showers come with the comets in their tail. So that's pretty amazing. That's spreading something on the planet. I just saw one the other day as I was driving home Thursday night. A streak, but it looked like a meteor streak. It didn't look like a streak like a next level spacecraft, I believe, looked. Not that I know the difference, I can tell for sure the difference, but I did have a lot of experience looking at the heavens in Tiando's group, when we lived outdoors especially, and seeing the different things that we're traveling through in Wyoming and northern Colorado and Texas and Arizona and New Mexico. And California and Utah and tiny bit of Kansas, tiny bit of Biloxi, near Biloxi, Mississippi, during those first years. Well, during the whole time. I probably pretty much named. Oh, Nevada, yeah. We spent time in Nevada. But never north of Southern California, except for when we were traveling doing meetings. We didn't spend any time in our overcoming process. Well, when you call it the astronaut training program, part of the more working more on our vehicles. It got to a point to where a number of the members were pretty much in control of their vehicles. Okay, I mean, probably 51%. I would say for sure. Otherwise, they probably would have been flushed. The next level would have challenged them, and they would have made a choice to leave, like happened to me, like I chose when I chose to leave. I guess I hadn't thought about it that way before. Maybe I didn't even get to 51. Maybe I dipped into it a little bit. Maybe I only got to 48, and they wanted to give me something to boost me a little bigger in being able to make choices that were next level choices. Or I would have accepted the help that Doe offered me when he offered it to me. Twice. If I had 51%, then I would have overruled whatever my vehicle wanted. So we don't know how, the next level of information comes to us in a lot of different ways, but you're not going to hear voices in your head. Now, if you have dreams, you can't trust the dreams, but the next level does work with individuals through dreams. And an example of a dream that someone might have might be just feeling like they saw Doe, the vehicle, Marshall Applewhite, his vehicle's name, however they thought of him. Somebody just recently told me that. He didn't know if it was a dream or a vision or what, or if he was half sleeping, which I have some half sleeping experiences that were pretty significant. I mean, one of them, I actually thought a spirit walked by me or glided by me, and I went to follow it and find out where it went, and I didn't find it. And but I saw it. I saw it out of the corner of my eye, and then I looked to my left, and I saw this thing. It looked like the size of a toddler. No, bigger than that. Size of maybe a 10 or 12-year-old. I don't know what that average size might be for. But anyway, maybe a little older than that even. But comparing height to age, which doesn't always make sense because some people are very, very short and they're as old as anybody else. But so it's a stupid way of trying to describe it, I guess. But I guess by the averages. And so anyway, so it glided by. It was almost as if it had a sheet over it that was darker than the room. And so that's what made it stand out. So it looked like a shadow, in a sense. and it glided by me, and I didn't see any up and down motion. And I could see the shape of the shoulders that would make on it. So it wasn't just a straight angle down. But anyway, so I forgot how I got into that. Talking about dreams. So the individual felt like he was, he had that experience and that it was dough, and he was a little bit frightened, scared by it is the word he used, scared by it. I asked him the question of what was scary about it. Now, the only thing that could be scared about it would be like being shocked that it was true, maybe. That could be scary. Because it's like that becomes like a little bit of a wake up, and it can be difficult to handle. And I got some of those wake ups while I was in the classroom, but they weren't difficult for me to handle. But I was so committed to being in the classroom already. It didn't. But for somebody that's new to this information, and has just been exploring it, been curious about it, and we're going to have that. We're all going to. If we're having that, that's great, because it gives us a chance to think that it's real, more real than we thought, and I can listen to tapes of T and Do talking now, the same tapes that are available to other people to have freely, for free, because there's several of us that are giving them away, and Carlin as well as myself, and so that. I would listen to the tape and I would think, wow, I missed that entirely. But I didn't miss it entirely. But I could see another whole level to it. So that's what I'm talking about. The next level mind comes in degrees to us. And we don't know it's next level mind until we find out that it's related to something a next level member said. So then when people start reading the Heaven's Gate materials, and they're going to get to it, you're probably going to get to spots in it to where you're going to say, holy smokes, is this real? In the back of your head, it might happen right away. It's like, wow. Do I want to become one of them? Do I want to become someone that believes in this and has looked at, and you might flash upon a parent or a child or a grown child, or what are they going to think, or well, they already think I'm a lunatic anyway, so that's the way I go. I thought about this kind of stuff. When I first started watching the tapes of Doe that he made in 1996 and 7. And it was like, wow, that's strong. And it almost, it was like I can only take so much. So I can relate to this seeming bizarre. I have no question about that. It can seem very bizarre. And but I know that it's not bizarre. It's just my ability. It's just my influences. The part of me that's human, the genetic part, the environmental part, that would be scared of it. Because it's ominous. That's another way of looking at scared. Something that's ominous is like, wow. And so that's how someone else told me they had a dream where they were painting a bridge, and Doe was on the upper level and he was on the bottom level painting the bridge. I hadn't thought about it before. I think he even related it to a certain bridge in New York, George Washington Bridge, I think. He thought he was painting. He was from that area, I believe. And when he said that, I thought, wow, that sounds like something that might have come from the next level. That's the only thing I can say to it. Like I said to this individual that told me about his vision or dream or feeling or whatever it was, half dream, that he had, that he saw Doe in his mind, as in the Marshall Applewhite vehicle. And I thought, well, that doesn't sound unfamiliar. And there was another individual who I think had the name of Austin. At one point, told me he had a dream that he felt like Doe was in his dream, but I don't remember him telling me anything more about it. But just having Doe in your dream is anybody that wants that experience. If you persist at it. Don't just ask one time, because the next level is not going to necessarily they're not like producing magic. They're not trying to, trick us. And that's why, even seeing Doe, it doesn't, you could think, well, I've been thinking about this information a lot, so it was just in my dreams. So big deal. Right? Somebody could think that way, for sure, and that's an option. The next level provides all the options, and they provide that option constantly. Every student member for their whole life that they're pursuing this is going to have the option to back off from it. It is a backing off, I believe. We all have the capability of going all the way, or we wouldn't have the opportunity to try. Because the key is to seek the help of the next level, and then when you get that help offered to you, and you see it in front of your eyes, you don't choose to do otherwise. Because the help doesn't come by a thought, I'll go here or go there, or with information that says, the world is going to end at a certain time. Well, that's Luciferian stuff. They like to do that to discredit the next level, to make it look ordinary. And so they get Christians to do that, even though the Christians were told that you're not going to know the time and the season. You're not going to know the time and the hour that I'm going to return. I'm going to return during a time that you don't expect. When people are marrying and giving in marriage, and so life is ordinary. So you can't predict that, But we were told that it was going to be the end of the age, because that's what Jesus was referring to when he said the end of the age. The end of the eon is what I think the Greek word was, which Doe said was about 2,000 years. Well, I don't think he said about. I think he said 2,000 years. I guess that's some kind of a cycle. Cycle within a cycle, within a cycle, within a cycle, within a cycle. How many times can you say that and have it be true, right? In terms of mind and body, biological, elemental, particle, quantum. There's probably some other new terminology, dark matter, with space, warping space and time. But Tino taught that the way that humans are thinking about the future and the past, that there's a possibility to time travel in those ways within the same civilization, is not true. Doesn't happen that way. Except to the degree that spirits are around that are from all those different parts of the time spectrum, and that we can potentially tap into. We can choose to try to get a past life regression, and we might get some ideas of different lifetimes in that strain of genetic human. And but that the only other way to go into the past is to go to a different planet that has life forms growing on it that aren't as evolved as the life forms that you're a part of or have on it. So maybe a planet where there's no humans or human equivalents, actually. But there actually could be beings that are humanoid but are peaceful, and that the next level could actually be visible to. So that individuals could actually see them coming and going, literally, as if we were watching airplanes flying around, or whatever the next level spacecrafts are that they would use in that circumstance. And that would be called next level base. In other words, they can be who they are and use that planet while there's humans living on it. And it's possible the Earth, according to Doe, might be used like that for a time after the recycling, before they start up a new civilization on it or someplace else. I think the impression was that there might be a new civilization after that. See, notice Doe said might in those circumstances when he was talking about that in Beyond Human, I think, session 11. But it might have been in another session too. I should go back and look at it so I can be accurate. It's good to you have to, yeah. If anybody wants to be of service, which is part of the task, but there's no timeline on this. When somebody first gets exposed to the information, there's no timeline that says, okay, now at this point you've got to be of service, and so you've got to do something for the next level, engaging somebody else to some degree, right? But that can take many forms of even preparing. I think it can take many forms of even preparing the materials, like typing in the audio tapes. To me, that would be a service as well, in addition to other services. There's not an end to service. The more we want to do, the more we're going to grow. The more we're going to change our behaviors, the more we're going to grow. Alongside of the more we're going to do, the more we're going to grow. And growth is endless. And there are failures. But as long as we don't stop indefinitely, we continue to grow. And we keep on coming back. So it doesn't matter. I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but let's say we have an addiction and we go back into using again. And And, we can think, well, I might as well not pay attention to this information anymore because I'm not doing that. I'm not staying on the wagon. And but that would be the way that the next level, the lower forces, the Luciferian, space alien, fallen angels, and the discarnates, and the humans that can be influenced by all that to react with you. By working against that and asking the next level, overriding it and using that, even if it's just for barely what you can do, even if it's like you're like hanging onto the side of the cliff. And this is an example Tiendo gave us. And you feel like it would be very, you're tempted to just let go because it's so hard to stay on that side of the cliff. And but then you stay on that side of the cliff and you say, next level, please help me. And I'm not saying those are magic words. Actually, Tiendo is who you should talk to, because the next level can become an ambiguous term, like the term God has become, and like the term even Kingdom of God has become, and Krishna, Buddha, and cosmic consciousness has that same kind of nebulousness to it. And when it's directly, actually, it's got to be Tiendo that we're asking for help. I mean, at the least, if somebody doesn't know about Tiendo, then it's whatever they think of as the highest power and highest source of truth. And that ends up going to Tiendo. So either way, next levels, they're not going to make it harder on us than we can handle. They don't. We can handle it all. And in that way, then we can really help others, because this is not going to get better going forward. The way, there's all these mass shootings all the time with little breaks in between. It's almost like, how does that happen that way? But those things are, I think, stimulated by the Luciferians and the discarnates, of course, that work with them. And it doesn't mean that those Luciferians are directing that. Some of it's kind of like a form of it's just the way the garden grows that that we need to have pain and suffering for everybody involved. The people that are deceased from it, they're not necessarily lost. A victim is not necessarily a victim. It depends on what that individual became in whatever time they had in the human kingdom. Even if it's not that much time, they might have become something that the next level wanted to save for future opportunity when they lost their life. Because they can actually stock the planet. It can be that practical. They can stock the next civilization with everything humans can become. Spirits to help individuals in all phases of life. So that they don't get to be 12 years old and think that the world is coming to an end because somebody posted a naked picture of them online, and so they want to go off themselves. They want to kill their vehicle to either get back at the person that's doing it or their parents for allowing it to happen if they think that way, whatever it was that made them, not made them, but gave them those choices in life that they took and ended up going in a direction that was a strong lesson. Not saying that that was wrong or that, but then to kill yourself, that doesn't accomplish anything. That's a waste at that point. And that's why, it's not a bad thing to have that as a law not to do it, so that people don't just do that willy-nilly. They have something that tells them to, this is wrong to do. Because we need these vehicles to learn lessons through. That's why Tiendo are anti-suicide on the human kingdom. But they're not anti-suicide in the next level family. And they were part of the next level family. So for them, suicide would have been to not leave when their older member said it was time. Because they had bonded with their older member as much as anybody could bond with anybody else. And more so even. Because they didn't have the proof of the flesh. So the body was completely under the control of, or at least 51%, of the soul that was inhabiting that body. Had drawn in next level mind, and that happens by experience. But experience isn't just sitting in the meeting. No, we don't get that much growth from that, Tiendo said in one of the meetings. That it becomes like going to church, and we get uplifted, and then we go back to home, and we continue to do the same things we did that we thought were bad, and we apologize for, and we continue to do those same behaviors, and then we know we can go back to church and get forgiven of it, and then go back and go through that same pattern, and we can be in a stagnant, or we can even be going backwards. And we can go backwards, and then we can take 2 steps backwards and 1 step ahead, and 1 step backwards and 2 steps ahead. We can to where and if we're doing that, then we might be doing the best we can do. So we don't judge ourselves by our difficulties. And ask for help from Tiendo. And you've got the formula there. And know that you can do better. So even if you get to a place that things are going pretty well, as somebody told me that they asked Tiendo to help them with employment, and they felt like they got it sometime later, but they felt like it was an answer to their asking. And that's the way that's another way that we get verification from the next level that they exist and they will help us with our problems, health problems. Something will happen. We'll see something on the news, and it won't be like the same thing we saw in the news before. Or we won't see it in the same way. We'll think of it as, oh, maybe I should look into that more. And so then you go look into it more, and you start to see, hey, that's interesting. That's maybe I should apply for a job there, Or maybe I should move to that town over there to be closer to a job. But there was a saying that Tiendo gave us. I mean, saying like they said it a lot, but it stuck in it was one of those things that just stuck with me. It was short. It was, if in doubt, don't. That was from Tiendo's mind. I hope it's in one of the audio tapes. I haven't heard it yet in the audio tape. So if somebody ever finds it, let me know where it was. They also said, and this might sound contradictory of that, they also said, take a chance on a positive. Take a chance on a positive. See, but that would be the next level way to be giving us things that they're always challenging and they're always beneficial. And they're always giving us the option of how to interpret it. even in different degrees, in different ways, at different times throughout our lives. So that all our experiences human in the human kingdom it doesn't matter what we did in the human kingdom. If it led up to now, then it was all opportunities that led to now. And they were all good opportunities at that point. Now meaning whenever we made a little jump to getting out of previous ruts or ways of thinking that were not positive and not, truly positive. I don't mean positive like Pollyanna, or the word that Tiendo used about positivity. It could be Pollyanna positivity. They didn't say it like that exactly. I can't connect those two words together. But Pollyanna was one word, and positivity was certainly, I don't know if they said positivity or they said positive. So, we can get to the nth degree of trying to duplicate them. Is the intention that's most important in all this. But it's best to stick with the words that they used to try to get the best, clearest intention. So that's why it's of value for me to tell you when I'm trying to stick to the exact words. Maybe that's, to me, even the worst case scenario on that, maybe a worst case, I shouldn't say it's the worst case scenario, is that that shows the processes that some students are going to go through in their heads, trying to stay on the straight and narrow. Because now the straight and narrow isn't what Jesus said. The straight and narrow now is what Tiendo said. Because if we were on the straight and narrow with Jesus or thereafter when he left, whenever our soul was born, which would have been during that time, which could have been, thousands of us, of course, I'm assuming I'm one of them, but which I know that the soul that was with this vehicle trying to take it over was. Because I know where that individual had its birth was in as Bezalel in the Old Testament. Doug told me that. Told all of us who we were, and talking about who the strain of mind that came through the previous vehicles in studentship. But like I said before, that soul got a little far away from me. But that soul may still be kind of overseeing what's happening, trying to take over the vehicle more and more, and actually helping my vehicle in ways. Or I don't know. The next level could have assigned that soul another task and let them accrue help me. So I can't say that I am the same person as, but see, the next level doesn't have a persona like that anyway. They don't have, you become an individual for the first time when you become an individual, when you become a member of the next level. And that's an adult member of the next level I'm talking about, not a student member that has to return again to a human kingdom like some of the 38 Doe said would have to do. But wow, it's amazing, isn't it? Because even my, the things that I say that I know are getting a little off track here and there, it's like that old saying that, for those that love the Lord, all negatives can be converted into a positive, even on the spot. And, negative becomes relative to what removes us from seeing the truth in its purest form from that. So And I want to try to be the best instrument I can be, the best vehicle I can be, especially when I'm talking to you all. Other times, it would be nice if I could be the best vehicle I could be for that same next level mind. But I know I'm not. I know I can do better, a lot better on that. I couldn't do better in trying to be the best vehicle I can be. But the way T and Do described it was that they were like pipes, like water pipes. They didn't say water pipes. They just said pipes, pipes. And they said that when they were using their mind, they were like producing a little bit of static in that water pipe, a little bit of. But then they said that it needed to be scaled down to give it to us from its intensity. So it's like it was built in that way. But see, that didn't mean that it was right for them to allow their mind to be in there. Now, what would be their mind? Well, their mind would be more when they said that, when they would say like, well, clearly, like if Doe reflected on the way he was thinking when he hadn't awakened to the next level mind coming into him to the degree that knew that he was a member of the next level, so that if it was relating to that, maybe during that time period that he was doing that, maybe he was using his own mind. But Tiendo meant it in different ways too. Which Doe said that in one of the 94 tapes, he said that that T knew. Well, the way he described it was when he was awakening, T would just know how to cut to the quick, cut to the chase, and what you were saying and what they were doing. In other words, look at an option. Go to this town, talk to this preacher, go to Billy Graham, try to talk to Billy Graham, try to talk to. I don't know whose ideas that was, because Doe didn't get specific about who they went to talk to, but sometimes T would not feel like it would be of value to go talk to that person or to go to that location or to study this information or look into that book or whatever, to try to get more clues about who they were and what their task was, because that's what they were going through. Who they were wasn't like a finite. It had its definition as being members of the next level, which was broad enough. That was as much, that came from the next level to do a task that has something to do with the Bible, and that was related to fulfilling prophecy. That's the first chunk of information they got. That came within a time period that they were in Bernie, Texas. Now, speaking of Texas, there's a new picture on the screen. If anybody's been to my last live stream knows, of 3 radar images that were just recently in November of 2019 blipped on the radar. And there was all kinds of uproar about it in Texas, what it was. And I think some people are saying it's space junk, maybe. I think that's one thing I heard. And yet, look at them. 3 clearly circular spirals that aren't even the same kind of spirals, having different densities and different parts of them, and the top one being bigger than the rest. Now the top one is in, where is that exactly, that top one? I want to look at that again. Let's see if I can blow that up for you all in case you can't read the states, the cities there. I think you can read that, right? Because I can, and I have vision problems. But for my use, though, let me see here. Well, let's see if somebody else has vision problems. Maybe they can't see it. So I'll just blow it up bigger. Okay, so you see that Austin's at the top of one, and then the bottom one, and then the middle one is over I don't know what the middle one is. Wow. Interesting. And then the top one was below ACO. And the top one, for people that don't have vision, that's why I'm describing this, is in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, kind of centered west of DFW, I guess. I don't know why I didn't put Dallas on the map. Oh, it's Dallas-Fort Worth, dummy. Anyway, sorry. I just, I was in the vein and I just spaced it out. But, all right. Because I'm thinking about other things as I'm talking here. And see, Lubbock is in the top left corner of this screen. That's where the Lubbock lights were. And then if you go actually east of, actually, I got to mention this. Gosh, I got to see a real blow up of that next to a Dallas map. Not just a Dallas map, but a Texas map, to see what county that is that's extending into, see if it's incorporating Spur, Texas. Because Spur, Texas is just west of Dallas. A little west and a little bit north of the Dallas city center. Because it's north of I-20. I just went through Spur the other day. And I met somebody that actually knew the Applewhite family. Knew of the Applewhite family. Actually, she came to where I was, and my friend were parked, looking at a little, like, a monument area where we were filming and things. Okay, I just got an answer, I think, from the next level. Because I was thinking about the other day, that I wanted to make a movie. But I couldn't figure out what kind of a movie to make. Not a movie, or a documentary or a docu whatever. And I knew about, I'd taken this trip with this person over the course of 2 weeks, that went through Cave Without a Name. And I've got footage from all that and all the talking we did on the way. I kind of started with St. Louis. Anyway, the gateway to the west, that Tiendo said, was the Mississippi River, where it goes, separates where the next level's primary focus was when they were here? The western United States from the Mississippi River over, which is approximately the size of the New Jerusalem spacecraft that John was seeing in the Book of Revelations. But Tiendo didn't teach that, so I may be wrong about that, being all accurate. They did say that all the events in the Book of Revelations would be fulfilled. So we know that the events are all in there. So the New Jerusalem, when that came, I don't know. That could have been the coming of the New Jerusalem from 2,000 years ago, which would have been the Western United States. Well, that's what I just said. But the way it's depicted right. I'm sorry, I just went through full circle with my own logic. And I was thinking of that as the return of Jesus, and because of the fact that the heaven was going to be rolled up as a scroll. But see, that could be two different events. One can be the next level spacecraft, and the other one can be the spacecraft that is considered to be the heaven that separates during the sixth seal, which right now I believe we're in the process of the fourth seal, the green horse. Green having to do with harvest time the most. And of course, everything that green has to do with it is how that harvest time looks. Because there's weeds in the garden that are being pulled up, and but they're not pulled up until so the weeds are still in the garden. They haven't been pulled up yet. They're not pulled up until the seal takes place in Revelation chapter 7. Now, that according to that, if that's accurate, if that's one of the accurate, because the whole book of Revelations isn't accurate, because John didn't get everything right according to Doe. So he didn't say how much of it was wrong, but I think some of the things I'm saying now about the New Jerusalem and things like that might be one of the area. Well, he did say that the 1,000 years was part of that the Luciferians would be locked up. He thought that wasn't necessarily accurate. I'm starting to think about it in different ways, though, at the same time. How it can be both, perhaps, because that's the way the prophecy seems to work all the time. But so I don't know what facet of that 1,000 years isn't accurate. Maybe the part of it where it said that the Luciferians would be locked up again, maybe that's the part of it that wasn't going to happen, because one way of thinking about that is I believe Doe indicated that there was going to be a new crop of Luciferians. I don't know if it takes 1,000 years to recycle to the degree that they want to. I kind of doubt it, actually. I think a lot of that time will be maybe the development of the civilization again, if they use the Earth right away for civilization. They could, like I said, they could use it as a base for a while. Maybe that's the 1,000 years it becomes a base, but that would be like a day in the next level. Just doesn't seem like that, even though they can do a lot in a day. Next level time. It's not like they just don't have the time. They're not measured by that. It's hard for us to imagine. I know. It's hard for me to imagine. Maybe other people can get a better handle on it and their concept. But it baffles me. I can just talk about it, though. I get a little sense of it, That might be enough. But well, Dallas is also where White Rock Lake is, and that's where T's ashes were spread. Now, there's a new documentary that's coming out, docuseries, coming on HBO Max and CNN. So I don't know. I guess that's a joint arrangement. So I don't know. Maybe they'll just play it once on CNN, and then so they might. I guess they'll probably use what CNN did before this too. But one person said about it that it was more horrifying or something than we can imagine, or something like that, or most horrifying. He put some kind of a said that it would be horrifying, and I posted on my blog. That was a horrendous thing to say, in my own words, on my Facebook page, but because there was nothing horrifying about anything about Tiendo and the students. Now, the Luciferians certainly see what they did as horrifying, and that's who's telling the story. Now, doesn't mean that the next level doesn't get in there what they want to get into it through everybody that's interviewed, potentially, depending on how much they want to know the truth and what parts they took from it, and how so they can try to be objective. And I'm really hoping that they're going to show the next level side of it. They didn't really want much from me in terms of prophecy, so they're not going to really go down that angle. But maybe they will allow me to use some of the footage that I gave them in that regard. About the Revelation 12 woman and the Revelation 11 interpretation of Apokutaino as exiting by dying again. No, exiting by dying themselves. Exiting by dying themselves. Apokutaino auto. I'm not sure that's the best pronunciation. That's my best Greek translation for that. There's not a whole lot on Kataino. It's just there's just like 4 times that word is used in the New Testament, and I don't think Kataino is ever used by itself. You can't go to the Greek dictionary from that ancient Greek and the Strong's. I don't think Thayer's has it either, but there is understanding that it also can mean dying in any way. So it also means destroy. An apo part, APO, has to do with away or exit or off. And it was offing of the vehicle. Can you look at it that way, right? Turning the vehicle off. And it was taking the vehicle away. And going away themselves, the away team. I hadn't thought about that before. They were the away team, and that's one of the valid translations of the prefix to the word kataino. When it's in conjunction, it's away is applied to kataino of death, a way out of death, which it also is a way out of death because they're going to life. The only definition of life that Jesus gave and that Tiendo gave was becoming a member of the next level, because that's when life really starts. We're not living because we only exist on a very little temporary basis, and the whole thing can be shut off, and we don't exist anymore. So we become like the hologram, like the holodeck. But the holodeck has physicality to it. And that was demonstrated that way in that movie in Star Trek. Tiendo didn't become gravitated to Star Trek. Tiendo's crew stimulated Star Trek coming into existence. Tiendo taught that they worked with the movie theaters, people that had a lot of influence, because just the Luciferians aren't the only ones working with the people with a lot of influence. The next level regulates that too. They keep influences away from people so that those people can, in fact, if they didn't keep influences away from us, none of us could probably succeed, because this planet has become so toxic, biologically and mentally. Look at the way the Christians are teaching the evangelicals, who are the staunchest Christian group, it seems like, basically taking to heart the instruction that was given to disciples of Jesus to go out and spread the word throughout the world. So those are the ones that evangelical means. That it means spreading the gospel. And so I'm not saying other denominations aren't doing that in their own way with their missionaries. A lot of them are doing it, but that's not called evangelicals. But since they're called evangelicals, then for them to be saying that becoming wealthy is a blessing from God and a reward for your work for God, by your giving to the church, giving to the ministry that you're part of, and letting them distribute those funds to where they want to give them. That is your ticket to salvation. And it's not. It's not a ticket to salvation at all. Jesus said that it's almost impossible that somebody that with money could become a member of the next level, could go to the kingdom of heaven. And that's not a trivial statement. Riches gives people something else to believe in. And people believe that humans with their riches can stop global warming, stop climate change, create the weather, live forever, genetically engineer new vehicles from the seed, without even they would like to not even have to use the sperm and the egg. But they're forced to use that because they don't know how to do it otherwise. There might be all kinds of ways the next level can grow vehicles. I know there are. Because they grow next level vehicles on a vine, and some of the vehicles can be as large as a planet and as functional as looking like a planet. That can be a spacecraft in itself. Now, I'm not saying that Pluto, which might be a next level spacecraft, is a member of the next level, piloting it. But maybe the chief. Maybe the chief's mind is, or part of the chief's mind is there. Because when you get to become somebody that's equivalent to T in the next level, Doe said that you can have more than one vehicle. And vehicles can be to where the soul vehicle, which is a plasma kind of vehicle, I've said this many times, but I know there's always new people coming in here. A plasma kind of physical physicality. Then the next level grows vehicles like on a vine that are growing to adulthood. So it's not like a little baby that you got to wait for it to grow up. You don't got to wait for it to grow up. That's only in the human kingdom that happens. We're the babies in the next level's kingdom, potentially, if we choose to be. If we choose to respond to their drawing us to them, which they do by even this negative documentary. It's going to have lots of, it's probably going to have all the stuff that the podcast had in it and the CNN report had in it. And there's a lot in that podcast. And they can refer to what Doe said about exiting. If we wanted to exit and we didn't want to take it upon ourselves, but we didn't want to be taken over by the lower forces, sort of like the Masada experience, to where the disciples of, well, actually the Jews, but probably Jews that were maybe associated with believing in Jesus might be, I don't know for sure, but some part of that group probably, or Doe probably wouldn't have referred to it, when they were in the Masada area and they were being attacked repeatedly and they knew they were going to fall. They could see how many Romans there were and that they didn't stand a chance of living. So they took the lives and they killed their offspring, and they took their own lives. And so if we felt like we were in that kind of a situation, then Doe recommended that we have a firearm and that we present ourselves as a threat to the forces that are like in the Waco situation, but we wouldn't fire it at them. Well, maybe we would fire it in the air. I don't know, or maybe we'd have blanks. But our intention would be not to hurt anybody else, and we wouldn't do anything to hurt anybody else. But that would prompt them to do us in. That would be a valid way of exiting, according to T and Doe's different options. We could also die of disease. Can die any way we want. Not want to, but it's legal. And euthanasia was something that T and Doe said should be legal for somebody to have the choice to die when they want to. Now, that's not justifying people that commit suicide, because they said that we need these vehicles to learn lessons through. So using suicide as a reason to get back at somebody, or they didn't say all that, but they said as a reason to not learn a lesson, a difficult lesson, is a waste of the opportunity to learn that lesson. And if we don't learn all the lessons, we never will graduate into the next level, because everybody doesn't graduate. That's why what I recommend to people now is no suicide. No, I think it's wrong. I think T and Doe think it's wrong for people now to use suicide, because we don't know. I've had people ask me that. Tell me that. I've had 3 people now, I think, total. It hasn't happened recently. Told me they were thinking about suicide. Maybe just 2. And both of them, I said, before I even really tuned into what that document that Stamodi wrote against suicide in the Heaven's Gate book, I guess I should read that. I told them, I said, why don't you work for T&Do first, and and see what happens before you think that you're leaving, because you're not, you can't stand it here anymore, because he was living outdoors in Philadelphia area, is my understanding, and he was having a hard time making ends meet and finding jobs, and he was a painter, an artist, so. Maybe he didn't want to take certain jobs. I don't know what it was, but and I don't know if he was just somebody that was being fraudulent and was testing me, because I'm sure that, I'm not sure of it, but I have reason to suspect that was happening also a number of times in different ways. But so this is not a suicide. T&Do said this was not a martyr trip. He said to the individuals that laid down their lives, I was there among them. I heard that a number of times. They said that this is not a martyr trip, which was good for me to hear, even though I didn't know if it related to me or not. But it did relate to me, because I learned later, like 10 years later after I left, that part of me, my consciousness at the time when I joined, was that I was becoming something special by being willing to lay down my life. No, that I would be seen as something special. Seen as something special. Because every student of the next level is becoming special to the next level. No doubt about that. But that doesn't make them special until they succeed at the task. But they're special enough that the next level is going to help them with that task. And that's also very special. So we are. And to honor that, we can abide by everything they taught best we can. Work up to it if we're not there yet. But have that in mind. That's our goal, to abide by everything they taught as it can best apply. Doesn't mean you got to cut your hair the same way. I'm not saying it'd be wrong to do that. But these days, you can look at pretty much any way you want, and nobody's going to find. Somebody's going to find fault with you, sure, but it's going to be acceptable, and it might not be acceptable in some of the jobs, of course, but maybe you don't want those jobs anyway, even though sometimes they pay more, but they might also be more aligned with humanness, and respect of humanness. Respect of human intelligence needs to be outgrown, because humans aren't that intelligent. It's relative to the next level. We're talking about intelligence. So you can have somebody that's, looked down upon because, they live in the mountains and they're missing teeth, and, they flunked out of this school or, that school, and they ended up, taking drugs and sleeping around and never made anything of themselves, and there's no intelligence there, and yet you don't know how many things that they avoided, that the people that had all that hadn't even begun to learn yet. they could have, that genetic strain could have had lifetimes of certain lesson streams. And so when they came into this life, no matter how hard they tried to conform, there was something about them that was just not fitting in. And they tried to make it work, but it wasn't working. That's one of the signs. It's not the only sign. I mean, someone could believe in themselves a great deal, and something can happen. They could have a heart attack. They could have a nervous breakdown. Sometimes it's going to take a shock like that, near-death experience. All of a sudden, they think, "Wow, all that was like, not worth much if I don't have my health." And then they get a near-death experience, then they're challenged with the idea that happened for a reason. It came from God, and now they were special, and they were supposed to tell people how to live or about their experience, and sell books and give lectures and help the world be a better place. And it may be the opposite that they're doing. They may be getting people entrenched into this or that spiritual path of like that we are all gods, that idea. And it's just a matter of recognizing it. That's keeping us from being a god. And that becomes something very difficult to overcome. Gosh, once you think you're a god, I mean, how do you overcome that? So what do you do then? Then you think that it's just that you want population control. You can think thoughts like that, like this planet's not going to survive with 6 billion people anymore. We're losing everything. And so maybe I'll overlook that the vaccination program has all these deaths associated with it and biological problems with it, maybe, or I'm just brainwashed to think that's the only way to have a healthy immune system. It becomes, what happens to a lot of people is they have good intentions, but then they end up feeling like they're bigger and bigger in a sense, and they have more. Now they're taking on more and more overview, and they feel like they got the job to make the hard choices. That's what a lot of the generals think. I shouldn't say a lot, but I know some of them have expressed that they got to a position that, like in that movie, I think that was honest. It was with, what was his name? Not Michael Douglas, but maybe his dad. I forgot who it was, but he said he was on a witness stand on why the wars, and he said, "You don't want to know the truth. You can't handle the truth. I was equipped to making the hard decisions that you couldn't make because you're weak, and be completely feeling completely justified to even stimulate airplanes going into the World Trade Center." I'm just giving that as an example of what can happen in the human kingdom, because the Luciferians can instill that in people. Why would they want to do that? Well, because they want money to be able to buy technology, to be able to try to leave the planet before the next level recycles them, as Doe said. Was that they had, the way Doe said that is that in the USA Today information advertisement, it wasn't really an advertisement, but in a sense it was, putting up the shingle, He said that the rumor has it among the space alien souls with vehicles that they were about to be recycled, or that they were going to be locked up underground again, that's the impression you get from the Book of Revelation. Now, that might have been, John not getting that right. If that was the part that he didn't get right, then the next level could have used as a positive by having the Luciferians thinking that they were preparing people by going underground. And then if the next level allows those people to build underground, then you got the future Luciferians that have no sense of the existence of gods, but do have the sense of the existence of space aliens as having even created the human kingdom, which in a sense they did. But the next level created that and allowed them to create that part of the human kingdom that is seen by the hierarchy beast, the mammalianism, which is, Jesus said you could only have one master. It was either God or mammon. So God meant deities, the kingdom of God, or mammon, human treasure and wealth. And that, where are you going to talk about where the treasure and wealth is? Well, it's in the human kingdom. That's what Jesus was talking to. That's the beast. That structure. That is in the IMF, ruling the world, the International Monetary Fund. And the other ones that said that carbon tax is a good way of raising funds to fight against climate change. And it's brilliant in a sense, because then they can take those funds and do what they want with them. They don't have to do anything with them that are good for the people. But then they can do some things, to prepare for underground bases, to have an energy form that can survive an asteroid strike or a nuclear war or or volcanic eruptions all over the planet, or earthquakes bigger than ever before. Those things are bound to, they're all going to be, or storms, waves roaring, as Jesus said, would be happening. So hurricanes, or winds. Look at the winds now. They made those fires in California worse than they were maybe last year. I don't know if they're worse in terms of loss of human life and property, but it seems like the reporting was that was like a huge inferno there, and still is, I think. It's also burning in Australia like crazy. It also was burning a lot in Alaska, and I think, was it Chile? Europe, I think, was having some quite a bit of burning. The prophecy indicated that the world wasn't going to be destroyed by water again. So, but it was talked about as being fire. And the fire extends to the passions. Passions can kill people too. Look at the venereal disease. And people now are taking vaccinations just in case they would get HPC virus, even though the HPC virus isn't necessarily in in the growths that are happening in women's uteruses. which my ex-partner, had an operation to remove. And she refused to get the HPC virus. She had viruses when she was a kid. And she also had severe migraines ever since she was a kid. And severe allergic reaction. She got migraines from the green food dye. She was able to isolate that after a amount of time. How do we know that didn't come by weakening the immune system in some way, which is the purpose of the adjuvant mercury and aluminum? Adjuvants, mercury and aluminum was in a number of the vaccinations, maybe all of them, which is the purpose of the adjuvant is to stimulate the immune system. In other words, it's a toxin put in the immune system, so the immune system, when it goes to fight it, will also be able to be fighting against the virus that was linked with, somehow merged with that aluminum in that cocktail, that toxic cocktail that appears to be related to a part of the Revelation 16, 1 and 2, accepting the mark of the beast, accepting vaccination therapy. Now, I'm not saying that people that are vaccinated should or shouldn't vaccinate. I think it should be a choice. And that I would say that if it's not too late for some vehicles, I mean, some vehicles have adapted well to it all, and power to you. I mean, I got vaccinated like crazy, and I adapted to, I guess, some of it, but I also have some problems that I don't know with my nervous system, dizziness, vertigo, that didn't surface right away. But I had polio when I was a kid for, I don't know, it was more than a week or two. I couldn't walk. My muscles just wouldn't hold up my body. I could crawl, but I guess the muscles in my calves and my feet, and I guess in my shins, I guess, I don't know why they didn't work. But I was given the vaccination, the polio vaccine, and I mean, it's not unusual that people get the disease that they're given, which was a live strain, I think, in those days. That was in the 1950s, I think, when I got that. My vehicle got that. Wow, round Jericho and round the top. Yeah, so people's allegiance to the next level is being stolen away. That's the war in Armageddon, according to Doe. Even though he didn't talk about much, he did say that was the war in Armageddon was a war for souls. Now, it has a translation to war on the planet as well, which is part of the opening of the fourth seal, that the wars continue. Warring continues, and we see more warring happening. You know, it's not as big of a way as World War I and II, but it's more global. You know, there's a lot. Well, that was pretty global. So I don't know if it'll ever become that, because they've got so many, they've got all the, I mean, it seems to be going in the same direction. We've got the Russians and the Chinese and the Europeans and the Americans. And as the biggest powers, and well, the Indians from India, and the Pakistanis are nuclear, and Israel's nuclear, and So in terms of that, it's just a matter of time to where they're going to start using them on one another if they haven't already, and they still haven't told us about it. Because we're not going to be told the things that are unpopular. They're being continued to do what they want to do. Development of nuclear power is one of those things too. They may be putting those silos underground. Who knows? Actually, no, they don't have to do that because they got new permits now for different nuclear devices. And they can make them very small now, too. So, right, if the half-life is, like thousands of years, then gosh, being locked up underground for thousands of years, if you had that technology, would be a no-brainer. If you could keep your vehicle alive from dealing with the waste, right? And the output in particles. As long as you had a way to, but if you're living outdoors entirely, then where are you getting your oxygen from? Because if you're spewing the waste outdoors, or if you're even putting it under the earth, it potentially can, build up as pressure and heat to where, it could explode. But so it's got to be pretty hard to store that stuff. I don't know, if you have a big enough storage area, maybe that's the key. Maybe it could last for a couple thousand years or 1,000 years underground. Wouldn't it be interesting if even let's say the next level allowed this previous civilization to develop nuclear power, and so they ended up one previous civilization, so they ended up building reactors, and then the next level closed down the civilization, and they all went underground because they had developed spacecrafts and ways of going underground and digging tunnels and hollowing out caverns and finding underground lakes and things, which humans have found all those things now. And so then you were using your nuclear energy in this underground area. And let's say the output was going into whatever atmosphere was in that cavern that could be very large. And let's say that was going into the atmosphere and it was then combining with other elements that you were using. And so it began to glow. And maybe so that looked like it was sunlight inside the Captain Admiral Byrd. I'm just playing with it, right? But we did have that book in the classroom, in the library. We had a very little library, but when T and O started, we had a library when we got into houses. That's when I was aware of a library. And in the library was the book, the Roswell book, the first one. And then there was the story of the inner Earth theory, or ideas from Admiral Byrd. So if they had those books and they put them in our library, they never talked about them that I can remember, except to say that, they didn't know what was happening exactly with that. But they didn't say that it was wrong. So there can be truth to that. Especially when they went to Antarctica after that, and the Nazis went to Antarctica. So the United States went to the North Pole, and the Nazis went to the South Pole. Or the SS part of the Nazi party, because I'm sure there was many people that were part of the party that weren't any more aware of potential space aliens than people are now in the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. You know, you can wonder why people think things have reversed. So, you know, between these labels. Well, let me go back to the chat room. I've been doing a lot of yapping, but I haven't. So I don't think Epstein was abducted by aliens. But what do I know? I don't. To me, it looked like a hit, or allowing it to happen. Like, because the fact that it happened twice. Now that could have been someone setting it up so that you know, they can make it look like that, but it might have legitimately been. Well, it might have been, maybe it was a failed attempt the first time. You know, maybe he was. I mean, why was he even allowed to have an ability to hang himself to begin with, right? Why wouldn't you think somebody with the accusations against him wouldn't want to end his life? So to me, it's just kind of a setup right from the start. But let's say they did overlook it for some reason, which is possible. Then they might not. Maybe chose. Hey, maybe let's let them do it. You know. To end that stream. So James Crow says, "Hello, Sawyer. Yes, all of our minds stay here when we die, because our mind dies with our body." Well, I would just add to that the next level doesn't necessarily have to destroy the mind. That's why they can allow the mind to just exist for a while. Okay, now is the mind dead actually? Well, in a sense, it is, yes, because that same mind isn't going to grow to become a member of the next level. Unless it goes through another vehicle that was selected by the next level to be given a deposit of a soul to, that then draws that next level mind in and gets rid of that mind. So the mind of all humans can end up becoming stepping stones to that development. but they don't actually become an individual until they're a member of the next level. But then they don't have any discarnates anymore. That's my understanding from Tiendo. And DJ Taconic says, "Hey Sawyer, how you doing there?" Scott Adcock says, "I often rewatch the exit videos of the class, and sorority statements are interesting. Can you talk about it if appropriate? Thanks." Talk about the exit videos. Well, I know they were genuine. I'm not saying that some of the individuals didn't have some kinds of reservations, maybe a little bit here and there, who knows? But they might have identified that the reservation was their vehicle's little bit of fear, and that they were overriding that reservation. And I can relate that to other reasons for saying that I personally experienced. Which I'm getting past 3 hours, so I want to bring this to a close. So I'm not going to go into too much detail. But another example was with Livodi, who was doing a little bit of weeping or crying or tearing up, or stumbling, or her voice was trembling a little bit. That I don't think Livodi was one of those individuals that had any doubts. Because I know when she joined, and I know how close she was to Do. She was one of Do's helpers. And T also, she worked with T when T was about to lose her vehicle. And both of them joined from the Walport meeting. And I just know those were some of the elder students. Maybe even the living beings talked about in Revelation. The early chapters of Revelation talks about the 4 living beings. So her tears, to me, what could be a comment, was understanding, feeling Tiendo's mind in her, and the love that Tiendo have, and how that was going to be seen, but as evil, could have been a big part of her tears, because I have that same response. When I see, when I see the scope of, when I feel the scope of who Tiendo are, and that doesn't happen that often, but I feel that power go through me, and when I talk about how I failed, sometimes I have that feeling too. That tears up and my voice trembles a little bit, and I try not to accentuate it. I try not to dramatize it. And Do experienced this a number of times as well that I witnessed, and I've seen other classmates experience that as well. So, and I've seen a lot of things among the classmates that showed how much they love their older members. And I believe I do all love my older member. And but love is it has to do with how much we give. And giving our all is the greatest love we can show to our older members. And so it was an honor also for them to lay down their vehicles, because they weren't they wouldn't have been there doing it if the next level didn't know that they were doing it on their own volition, because they wanted to, with the content of their soul, and for the right reasons. Not to gain something by being a martyr, or gain something by being seen as a martyr, or gain something by getting a reward in the next level. Because I don't believe that's part of their mentality. What they know they're going to get a reward. It's not like they're not rewarded. They are. But that's never been held over us as bait Like Tiendo didn't say when you get to the next level. I mean, they did once in a while say it, but they didn't say it much. I mean, seldom, maybe 2 or 3 times over 19 years did Tiendo talk about that the next level is worth it. That's what Giannotti came to me in a dream and I believe said. Not too long after I began to want to be of service again, in around 2002 or 3 or 4. Giannotti had a dream, and Giannotti came to me and said, and it was just like she was really there. And she said, it's worth it. That's all she said. This is all worth it for us, no matter how hard it gets. Tiendo would always say in the beginning, no matter how hard it got, they would say that this too will pass. That's another saying that Tiendo gave to us, was part of their mind. This is their way. They were negative. They were not negative thinkers about anything. When someone did something that was kind of negative towards them, they didn't just barrel into them. They didn't barrel into them ever. It was always a very gentle way that they would speak definitively about things and say, I don't even remember them saying to anybody that they didn't say things like Satan is in you, or that's Luciferian mind that you're using. They would say that's not mind I recognizes from my older members. That doesn't seem like T's mind. Or they might say that's something like T might say. That's what Doe said to me when I had a dream, or I don't know if it was a dream or just a sense of a communication that I think I had one time when Doe gave us permission to try to talk to T directly after T left her vehicle. And I did it, and I went back and told T what it was that I thought T said back to me in response to what I said. Asked her a question of some sort, I think. And Doe said, sounds like something T might say. You didn't know if it was what T would say, but he was being honest. He didn't, that's an example of how a member of the next level talks, and also leaves all options up to their older member to update. That's why we talk like I could be wrong about this and that. Because we're leaving room to see more than we can see right now. And that's going to be proven to us that we can see more than we think we can see over and over again. I thought I was understanding everything you were talking about in the meetings at the time. I didn't think I was only getting a percentage. I thought I was actually pretty good at listening. I think actually I did okay, in some respects, but then maybe not enough. Obviously not enough. If I listened better, but maybe I wasn't capable of listening better. So it's not like we're not to be guilty about our own development, but we can't take no for an answer in terms of continuing on. We're capable. Okay, I'm going to go back to the chat room. I keep on going to the top of it each time. I guess maybe that's what happens when somebody adds something. Oh, wow, a typical day. I forgot to say anything about that. Oh, it's a huge subject. I mean, it's just in general, a typical day was the same as it is for everybody else that lives in a big family, okay? to where there's a number of adults in this big family, and some of them go to jobs, some of them don't. Some of them take care of the things that are happening around the house. It doesn't have to be a big family, it can be any family. But there's just no children. So they don't have to deal with any of that. But then all the students are children. Okay, so all the students, so Tienda set it up to where it was like a laboratory, the environment. And so that even if you were doing something mundane, if you were following instructions given by Tiendo, then you were following the program. But if you were doing something different than the way they said to do it, then you weren't following the program. So in a sense, it was like the military is in some ways. But of course, there was no weapons and no talking of killing and no yelling and no punishments and no torture of certainly. There was no punishments. There was no physical abuses. There was no manipulations. There was no catering to the vehicles, except to the degree that Tiendo said. So it wasn't against pleasure, but the pleasures had to be the pleasures that were given to us by Tiendo. Now, so I thought that so if they wanted to bring in ice cream or have desserts for a period of time, then we would do that, and that would be the pleasure we would have. If we went to the movies, that would be the pleasure we would have. And we did that periodically. We went to the zoo, we went to the museums, we went to saw My Fair Lady in the theater in Houston. And we did a lot of different things like that. And I gave you the general categories. I didn't include everything. But so we did that. And we went and got jobs, but we tried not to make the jobs into jobs that would require homework. Bringing a job home. They didn't want that, because once we got back into the craft, we fit into the different departments, and whether it was they changed the terminology on a lot of things. They had the kitchen, it was the neutral lab. The laundry was the fiber lab, fibers, and things like that. And so then you went to a crew and you read the procedure book when you went on duty, and to do an experiment. The experiment was the food. You're trying to overcome seeing food as pleasure. You're trying to see food as an experiment, as gasoline. That objective. But it had to taste good. Tienda didn't want it to not taste good. And they wanted you to get adequate nutrition from it and satisfaction from it. But they wanted to regulate the size of what you would eat and what you would eat. And so it was a discipline to do it all. And by exercising the discipline, you were getting control of your vehicle. That's all I'm going to say about that right now, okay? There's a lot more I could say about it. I could talk for 4 hours about it, probably. So we had departments, and we had downtime, and you could read books, or you could listen to tapes, and Tienda would come to a meeting and hold a meeting. And then everything would stop when you were having a meeting. And sometimes they lived with us, and most of the time they didn't. So they would call on the phone and say, we're coming over for a meeting, if they lived nearby. Or we're traveling, and we're going to talk to everybody over the phone through a speaker system that we had. They were amazing. They're more than amazing. They were the brightest stars in the human kingdom that have existed since 2,000 years before that. But even more so, because they've grown from 2,000 years ago. Even if it's just one day in the next level, they've grown from that experience that they had when they were working with humans. Well, let me put this back for anybody that joins me kind of late into this. I'm going to have to turn it in. I'm kind of exhausted. Okay, I went through that. I'm not going to read everything in the chat room unless there's a question there. Thank you, Scott. I appreciate it. My vehicle was named after Scott Carpenter as a confirmation name. I have a silly story about that. I was crying because I wasn't memorizing the rules for the Catholic Church, and my mother was there, and I was supposed to be confirmed the same day, and I hadn't passed the test. It had 50 questions in it. So I was crying there, and my mother was angry at me, and the Mother Superior was angry at me, and finally I guess, I don't know if I ever really got them all, but she finally let me go. And my name was Scott, named after Scott Carpenter, the astronaut. Is that the same book on Amazon today? My book is on Amazon, but my book is also, I'm not sure. Let's see, what other book was I talking about? Tian Do's book isn't on Amazon that I'm aware of, the Heaven's Gate book. Yes, you definitely could find the book that was well, I don't know about the Roswell book. It had a pink cover, and I think it was Moore was the one who was maybe the author, Moore, if I remember correctly. And then there was the Admiral Byrd book, which I think the Inner Earth book, I think that's what it was called. It might have been published with a new title, but I think it can be found. That's a heavy read. Yes, it is. And Jay said that, and let's see. And Kelly Clover, were T and Do both next level reps? Yes, they were both representatives from the next level. Adult members of the next level, not just adult members, but older members. Because T and Do said that there were older members and there were younger members in the next level. But then they also talked about how there was a Chief of Chiefs, which was the oldest member in terms of experience we're talking about, not necessarily time. And so there, and then they said that Doe said that T was the chief administrator of the earth, which also told us was the Revelation 12 woman. And he was the Revelation 12 moon, or the sun was T in that symbology. I'm sorry if a lot of you asked this question earlier and you couldn't stay around, but I guarantee I always try to go through the chat room, but sometimes I take a long time before I get to it. But you can, I try to copy it so I can put the answers in the description so that you can see that I got to it, so you don't have to listen to the whole thing again. Although I'm not that good at that, so I don't timestamp it a lot of times. But since I'm talking about it, I will try to do that. Right now, we're at 3:25. So let's say 24 to that part of it to give you an idea. I'll say 3:15. because maybe that's how, since I went through the latest bunch of things that you all asked about. So, then Jeff says, I guess, helping somebody else. Well, Jay Pollock says, discarnates are like ghosts. Right. And then Jeff Barnes is, I think he meant, what is your typical day now? Like feeding Blackie the horse. Oh, really? Blackie the horse. I talked about Blackie today, actually. He's got another name, is actually Avalon. But my day now, I thought he meant Tiando time. How do you know when you are? No, wait. Sawyer, can you describe a typical day for you these days? Oh, you're right. I see that. I was wrong. Okay, well, I gave you a typical day. My typical day now? Well, since I'm retired, I get up late. Since I stay up real late, and I just, I eat. I listen to the radio. I check messages and I deal with things on Yahoo. Regarding the things that I'm doing. Check up with personal emails I have. I have to take care of bills. Anything on the ordinary. And then I try to go to different events where I think I might end up talking with people. A lot of times it's the music events. And I don't always talk to people about Tiando. In fact, I very rarely do anymore. But I think there's still a value to doing it. And playing for people at open mics and things like that. And going to jams and things like that. I do a lot of that. I take care of the garden when we have a garden, and I take care of shoveling the snow. I have a 100-foot driveway. No, 100 yards is my driveway, and it's a little steep, so it's a big job to shovel that. And I still do that by hand, and I don't cut my own wood anymore, but I was cutting my own wood for a number of years for heat. And I sometimes care on a farm. Sometimes I work on a farm and I get paid for that. I sometimes do it as a favor for a farmer and a family. And I do benefits sometimes. Sometimes I go to political events occasionally if it's nearby. Or when my daughter was outgrown, then I would go to school. I did everything for school with her. She's 22 now, her vehicle. I don't talk to her about Heaven's Gate. She knows a little bit about it, but not much. I didn't try to. I told her that I believed that I was with the people that came back. That was the Father in the religion, in the Christian religion, and Jesus. And I tried to expose her to Jesus at one point with some Christians that were nearby, but it didn't work out. I kind of soured that, I think, to some degree, when I started writing things in the back of the empty pages of the Bible. I couldn't hold still, and they found it later on. But I think that kind of, I don't know, they might have seen me on one of the documentaries. I don't know what happened, but I got shunned from that church. And she really didn't like it. She really didn't like it either. But at least, she does have a sense of God. And she's got a very sensitive soul. And she's not typical. And she's had some struggles in terms of learning reading and writing and arithmetic. Didn't come easy for her. But she's doing good. So it was challenging. I did the best I could with my partner. And the partner lives nearby, and she comes here and works in my house. We have no relationship besides no physical relationship, no sensual relationship. Um, but she works out of the same house that we bought when she's here, and she travels a lot. My Jeff's chat is messed up. Okay. Jeff says I can't see the original question anymore. Oh. Jeff says, then do you tap maple syrup, maple trees? Uh, uh, well, yes, they've been tapped on my property, but I didn't take the initiative on it. But for a brief time, after my partner broke up with me, uh, she became partners with another man who was a good friend of mine, and I was in favor of him being with her because I knew it was over and it was interfering with how much I was working for T&O. So anyway, so they started to tap trees on the property that I had. We had 3 or 4 maple syrup trees, and then they started tapping trees where they moved. They ended up moving because that wasn't working very well for them, and even for me, it wasn't really working that well. But I was okay with it. But it was difficult though, because I was attached to my previous partner, my only partner. I have no partner now. I don't have relationships with anybody. So of any kind, I mean, I have friends, and I do things with those friends, but usually it's surrounding music or helping them with something. If I have a problem, I have neighbors that will help me with things, but we don't socialize with the neighbors. Anyway, so that's a pretty. I got a mortgage. My Social Security pays for it, and I get a little bit more than that. But I got some inheritance, so I don't really have to worry about that right now. But I do try to work. I try to work by making money with music. I busk on the streets when it's nice weather. And I'll take odd jobs. I don't get them offered very well. I have Lyme's disease still, but it seems to be mostly out of me. It took 3 years to knock it out using the transfiguration diet. So my diet's very holistic, so to speak, like a vegan diet without grain. But now I've been adding grains in, and I seem to be okay. I just keep it to a minimum. I add heavy proteins like meats and things. Not so much meats, but chickens and fish. I eat. Even though when I was fasting, I didn't have any of that. Didn't have any dairy. Except I did keep a little cheese in there for a while. Anyway, that's gives you a pretty good idea of my everyday. Well, folks, I think I'm going to call it a night. Call it a morning. And I hope we get a chance to talk again in the next few days. I've been trying to do like a couple a week. I generally like to have something, these 3 objects here. Actually, I could talk a lot about them, those 3 radar blips. I mean, you can probably find them if you search on Texas radar, something like that. And let me know if you can't, and I'll do another. Well, I can use it again, actually, and I'll get reminded of it because I'll use this screen next time I start over with a new broadcast. So with that said, I'm going to say good night. Thank you. Good night, Jeff, and everybody else. who's here. You don't have to say anything. I've enjoyed you all. I'm fond of you all at this point. Whether I know you or not, whether you've been with this or not, I kind of fall in love with everybody, because even if, whatever. Anyway, a next level love, a plutonic love. Good night, folks.